and not let me wander because I know we have limited time. I was approached by a committee from this church to design some altar cloths, and I thought this would be fun, great, because it was a time when I was doing banners, all kinds of cloth art. And my feeling about any of these is that they are for you to decide. I mean, I can design them, but you're the ones that are going to interpret them. Always, anything I do like that, I want you to be able to interpret it. So, what were we talking about earlier? It was just that I have been blessed with, talent in art and music, and I've used it a lot.
Well, you were trained. You took art, fine art, and
I did, but all the way up through my growing up, my folks just nourished this, and I was just one of the artists of the school that I was in. So that was great. And then I went off to college, and I got a degree and learned how to teach just about everything in art. So that's what I did for 33 years, and they were wonderful years. So turning on people to art is kind of like what I like to do. And so when I get to do this, and you love it enough that you want to do it during your season, this is just nothing better for somebody like an artist like me to find out after 33 years it's still being used. That is a real honor. And here I am, age 81, and I'm looking back after what I did 33 years ago, and it's going to be so much fun to hear what you have to say and what I can tell you about them. What more do you need to know?
I want you to stay right there and stand here for a moment, because when I went to see Martha, Martha is storing a piece of artwork from her former church, the Parish of the Messiah, right down the street, many of you know, merged in with a different church. And so the artwork that was in that place needed new homes, and the screen that was in the very front, in the chancel area of that church. How many of you have been to Parish of the Messiah? Remember being inside? Do you remember the screen that was in the front, and this gorgeous tree, and these different figures that were part of this branch? Do you remember that? How would you describe it?
Well, it was the Jesse tree. And when we took down when we moved the altar up into the transept, we were then with the space, and we took down the big red curtain and said, wow, what goes there? It was this 16 by 10 feet wide, and we said, let's do the Jesse tree, because the church was the parish of the Messiah. So this was the lineage of Christ. And so I designed this tree, and it was very exciting. I had to get scaffolding. I was like up on the second floor. And at times, I had to do Mary, who was at the top of the tree. I did her twice, because the first time I was really scared. If Michelangelo can do this, I can do it kneeling, not lying down. But at any rate,
talk about the period of time, too. How long did it take you to create that entire?
It was done very quickly. That mural was painted, started the day after Easter, and it was dedicated to the Pentecost, the Vigil of Pentecost, 50 days.
Yeah, you really should see the size and the detail in this work of art. And if you visited Martha in her home, you could see it up close, because all 4 panels are in her living room. Your den, yeah. And it's enormous, and I wanted to find a way to put it on display here, and it was just so large. We do have a picture of it that I'll show you during the fellowship time. But what I wanted to say about that, and the reason we stepped out a moment, is because MJ and Eunice, I think, are up top right now. And Martha created these liturgical banners, but there are also 2 others, or many others, but there are 2 others that I thought we might be able to use in our church in that front area. You know that the chancel right now, there's a cloth that hangs down. But MJ, are you up there? MJ, would you show us a work of art that might fit around Advent or Christmas time? And Eunice, you can show us a cloth that might work around Pentecost? It's still coming, there's more. So when we were at Martha's condominium, she laid these out for me on her floor, and I thought how wonderful if we could introduce some new works of art, and she has others too, that complement the work that we already have. So I would love for these to be a part of our worship in the days coming forward, and so grateful that we're in relationship with you. So I just want to say that we're delighted that you are the artist that created these, and we're so delighted that you're here with us today. Thank you. You can pull those back up for now so they don't fall on our heads. And what you have done with this liturgical art is you've given us a glimpse of a season. It's so hard, I think, for liturgical art to capture kind of the essence of a season, but you have very particular images that were chosen kind of with you and the committee. And I wanted to get you to talk about some of these images and where they came from for you. And I wanted to point out for you, maybe you don't remember this, 2 years ago, we invited church members to stand near one of these works of art and to decide which one spoke the loudest to you of your own experience or your own sense of who we are as a church. Which image are you most drawn toward? I won't ask you to reveal that now, today, but I can say that that day, most people were drawn to the image of the tree. And it reminded some people here of the pumpkin patch. Because, you know, pumpkins grow on trees. Well, they almost appear to, because the pumpkins are out under these magnificent oak trees out around the church, and the oak trees are so much a part of who we are. So that image spoke to folks. And I wonder if you would just talk to us a bit about maybe that image, where that came from, and where some of these other images came from.
Well, it appears that trees are very important to me in my life, and I have to say that this one here, I went up to this and looked at it really closely, and I was amazed, because I don't remember some of the detail. But trees they keep coming back every year. They grow, and they grow beautiful, and they're the most gorgeous plants on earth. And from that, I think I then decided, well, what's going to go into the Messiah's chancel? A tree. So, and now, would you believe, these days I'm very interested in taking pictures of trees, bare trees in the winter when they show their vulnerability. So I've got this thing with trees, it's clear. But this particular one here, when I walked up to it, I think too, the feeling, getting back to the emotional side of creating art. Listening to all you talk about what's on your minds and what's important to you, art does speak to people, and I never ever use words. I want you to decide what it says to you. So I would love to hear what you have to say. But this one, the leaves sparkle. That's life. That's joy. That's God's work. And I have this, I think, really fine relationship with God. I know that my gifts are God-given. And by golly, every day I remember this, because it's gotten me through some really tough times. But this tree, green, is so hopeful. It's summer. It's just, and it just keeps growing. And I looked up there and I said, what is that stuff? And of course I realized it's wax from the candles. Yes. And I said, are those leaves? Did we rake up the leaves? Whatever. But anyways, is that helpful?
It's great to hear you talk about kind of the leaves sparkling. The green is common time. And there's a sense sometimes that we're just kind of trudging along, that the other seasons are the exciting ones. But just hearing you say that the way that the leaves sparkle with life reminds me that that's what we were meant to see, that every moment, every day is an opportunity kind of sparkling with life. I know that you visited several places around the world, and some of your religious imagery kind of pops from some of those cathedrals that you visited. Is that true for any of what we see on that wall?
Yeah, of course. You know, the dove, we find this in stained glass everywhere. People want that right up there where they can see it. And of course, I had a course when I started out college, first one, and it stayed with me forever, which was a course about art and appreciating it. And that teacher taught me so much that I have used it and still remember today. And as a teacher, myself, an art teacher, I have used it to teach kids. So the dove, the flames, that's exciting. The angel is one of my favorites, but it's the way the angel's swooping up. And I would take those things off of stained glass windows. The star over there. Stained glass windows are big for me because they taught people without words. It was from ages past, and some of the most beautiful stained glass windows in Europe. So, and this over here, the rocky road, I thought that was pretty scary, actually, but it's very warm colors, but it draws you right into it. I think that's important, too. So, I think, you know, really, I don't have a favorite. but it's revisiting them that's so wonderful. And I have to say that all of the color that goes along underneath is spectacular because it just brings everything out. It's you doing your own banners. Or not banners, but
yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of when I visited your house, you showed me the kind of intricate stitching on some of these things and how personal the journey is. You talked a little bit about how you choose images, and you want people to kind of draw their own meaning from those images. But I get the sense that the creation of the artwork itself is also kind of cathartic, that it's meaningful for all of us because we get to enter, it frames our experiences, but it also, the creation of poetry, the creation of art, offers us this kind of release or a channel. I think that was true of the Song of Songs. The one who wrote this, I mean, there are all these delicious young images of love, come and meet me in the garden, but it sounds to me like it's written not by a young person, but by one who can reflect back on life and a little bit of loss. And it's somehow in the creation of this song, there is that sort of healing. I think that's what the editor is allowed to pass through, this reflection on life. When we talked about doing this, you shared with me that you were experiencing kind of a rush of emotion at the time when you were also creating these banners. Are you willing to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. When I moved to Newton, 1963, my husband was not well. We had to have about 8 years of marriage together. We had 2 very small children, and he really suffered a terrible, actually would have been a panic attack, and that's what got him out of the military. And 3 years later, he took his life. And that shock turned me toward God for help. I had a lot of help. I stayed right here in Newton and let this town raise my children with me. But I turned to art, as I have done so many times in my life, because in the art, I'm able to create things and I'm working with God. That's what I feel. Every time I'm making a decision, it's like, thank you, God, for these gifts, the gifts of art and music. So I appreciate what I've heard you say here today because I have felt it too. And after 32 years of teaching art, turning children on to art and helping them in times in their life when they felt they couldn't do anything right, but they could do art. And so I was able to do that and show, how joy could come through this experience. Whenever I feel down, I just go make something. I am so lucky. I really am very lucky. So that experience was very, very hard, but I stayed right here and I joined this church and the church helped me, and everything I do for God, for the glory of God, because of the gifts that He gave me. And I still am making things like, if I have a bad day, I go make something. So I'm very fortunate that way. Does that help?
That's wonderfully helpful, Martha. And I wanted you to meet Martha so that you could carry on the conversation with her afterward, especially if you find yourself struggling with grief. I think this is a teacher, also one who has a passionate relationship with God, who can offer an invitation for you maybe to step more deeply into the art. So Martha, thank you so much for sharing with me.